Chevy Chase, one of the greatest American comedy icons, was the golden face of Saturday Night Live, SNL, from its very first days that premiered in 1975, where he became the first breakout cast member with his role anchoring the fake news segment Weekend Update, creating a deadpan cold but extremely funny style that made audiences across the country forever remember the classic line, "I'm Chevy Chase, and you're not." On the big screen, he became the soul of classic films like National Lampoon's Vacation, 1983, where the character Clark Griswold became a model for an entire generation of American audiences, followed by Fletch, 1985, Caddyshack, 1980, and Spies Like Us, 1985, each role leaving an unforgettable, humorous imprint while proving his ability to turn everyday situations into perfectly dramatic and funny moments. Throughout more than 50 years of his career, he received many important awards, including Emmy Awards for SNL, multiple Golden Globe nominations, and became a source of inspiration for generations of comedians after him, like Steve Carell or Will Ferrell. Critics and colleagues all recognize that Chevy is not only an excellent comedian, but also a leader of American satirical comedy style, a living monument in the entertainment industry. But behind that spotlight is a journey full of tragedy. Chevy's childhood was incomplete. His parents divorced. Constant moves made him always feel lonely, lacking the protection and stability that are basic rights of children. Those gaps created a deep loneliness, but also formed a subtle observation and the ability to self-cultivate inner strength. He found an outlet in art, pouring all his emotions into comedy, turning pain and insecurity into laughter for others. Romantic relationships, professional conflicts, or media pressure all became challenges he had to overcome. Each failure, a wound, each time standing up a proof of resilient will. Chevy not only lived through the incidents, he learned to transform pain into creativity, turning personal difficulties and professional pressures into immortal punchlines, so that the laughter he brought both soothed others and proved his extraordinary fortitude. Before continuing to explore the childhood challenges and personal ups and downs of Chevy Chase, please hit like and hit subscribe to send respect to the man who turned loneliness into an immortal source of inspiration. That is a small but meaningful way to honor a comedy icon who still stands strong after every adversity. Chevy Chase was born into an intellectual family tradition, but full of turmoil. His parents divorced when he was young, leaving a void that no words could fill. His mother, although loving, was often busy with work and her own relationships, creating an invisible distance between her and young Chevy, making him clearly feel the loneliness in his early years. The constant moves, unstable living environment, and constantly changing friends made Chevy learn to take care of himself, adjust his emotions, and observe everything around him to find his own way of living. Each passing day, the boy learned to defend himself not by physical strength, but by his mind and quickness in behavior to cope with unexpected situations, harsh words, or judgmental looks from the surrounding world. That loneliness gradually formed in him subtle habits. The ability to observe meticulously, quick reactions to pressure, and a constant sarcastic smile like armor protecting his tender soul. Chevy learned to use humor to face fear and insecurity, turning suffocating moments into little jokes to keep himself from being swept away in the feeling of abandonment. The joy found in music and small performances when he stood in front of the mirror or created short plays by himself became precious spiritual gifts, helping Chevy feel he still had control, still had space to dream and create despite the shortages around him. Those memories, although full of pain, were the material that made the later Chevy Chase a comedian capable of turning insecurity, disappointment, and loneliness into the light of laughter. He learned to look at the world with observant eyes, capture every subtle detail, and turn things that seemed ordinary or harsh into material for comedic art. The stage and screen became the place where he found freedom, where the once lonely boy could send his pain in the form of laughter, so that those unspoken emotions were seen and appreciated by everyone. Every smile, every wink, every humorous situation that Chevy created later all stemmed from those painful experiences, turning a difficult childhood into the foundation for a timeless career. In the long nights, when the city fell into silence, Chevy often sat by the piano or performed small skits in front of the mirror, imagining a world where pain could be turned into joy, where laughter became the only way to survive. Those seemingly ordinary moments, when the lonely boy turned pain into play, planted in him the mental strength to go through adversity without collapsing. Chevy learned to stand up after injuries, learned to observe and understand people, while creating a humorous shell that helped himself and the audience laugh in the most difficult moments. This was the foundation for the satirical, subtle comedy personality and quick reactions to pressure that the whole world would know when he stepped onto Saturday Night Live and became an American comedy icon. Chevy Chase's youth was a series of days full of turmoil, where dreams and reality constantly collided, pushing him into challenges that were both fierce and formed the foundation for the comedic person he would become. When entering his teenage years, Chevy began trying his hand at acting, participating in small school plays and art clubs, but not every effort was rewarded. Many times he was rejected, overlooked, and the stern looks from judges or new colleagues were like silent knives cutting into his tender self-esteem. Each rejection was a shock, a reminder that talent alone was not enough to open the door to success in a world where luck, opportunity, and recognition were never equal. These failures increased the pressure to prove himself, forcing Chevy to learn to stand firm in the face of judgmental eyes, not only from the audience but also from fellow passionate colleagues. In that context, he learned to be independent, to manage his own time, to hone his skills, and most importantly, to believe in his own abilities, but at the same time to be wary of the relationships around him. Chevy soon realized that the professional world was not entirely kind. Kindness was sometimes taken advantage of. Advice was sometimes scheming. He trained himself not only with comedy and acting skills, but also by observing meticulously, analyzing human behavior, learning how to deal with difficult colleagues, strict judges, and harsh comments. This vigilance helped him avoid potential traps, keeping his spirit strong in a highly competitive and pressured environment. The incidents during this period were not only professional failures, but also mental shocks when being looked down upon by colleagues or judges. Harsh comments that made Chevy feel left out of the game, as if all his efforts were meaningless. Each time like that, he went through moments of extreme loneliness. Long nights wondering what his self-worth was, whether comedy was really the path for him or just a hopeless dream. But those shocks, those mental pains, became the silent driving force forming the failure resurrection motif throughout his life. Each time he fell, each time he was eliminated or looked down upon, Chevy found ways to stand up, hone his skills, observe, learn, and create opportunities for himself. In those years, he also began to build his own style: deadpan humor, subtle satire, the ability to turn ordinary details into unique sources of laughter. This style was both a shield to protect himself from injuries and a weapon for him to shine in the next challenges. Chevy understood that to survive and move forward in the highly competitive comedy industry, smiles and intelligence were not enough. He needed resilience, the ability to endure failure, and the ability to turn every painful experience into creative material. This tumultuous youth period, although full of challenges and pain, shaped a Chevy Chase who was both sharp, strong, subtle, and most importantly, learned how to turn failure into a stepping stone for the next resurrections. This very motif would follow him throughout his career, from SNL to Vacation, from Fletch to the complex relationships in his personal life. Each challenge was turned into material to shine, to build a comedy icon that the whole of America knew and loved. In 1975, Chevy Chase stepped into the world of Saturday Night Live, a new comedy show on NBC, with a risky mix of creativity and professional pressure. As one of the early cast members, he was assigned to anchor the fake news segment Weekend Update, where every line, every look could create laughter, but could also be mercilessly criticized. Right from the first episodes, Chevy's cold, deadpan style combined with subtle satire immediately made him stand out among the young, talented cast, creating humorous moments that audiences across the country could hardly forget. It was the smirking smile, the mischievous eyes, and the perfect timing that helped him turn seemingly boring news into sharp comedy bits, both reflecting society and satirizing the hot events that the public was interested in. However, the spotlight on stage did not mean ease behind the scenes. Chevy had to face enormous pressure from colleagues in the cast full of personalities, from John Belushi, Gilda Radner, to Dan Aykroyd, each with their own style, each wanting to shine, and each not afraid to express opinions or compete directly. Not a few times, tensions arose from professional conflicts, arguments about scenes, pacing, or comedic focus that made the atmosphere in the rehearsal room so tense it was hard to breathe. Chevy, with the personality already formed from his tumultuous childhood and subtle observation, learned to stand firm, maintain a calm attitude, but could not avoid moments of internal conflict, sharp clashes with colleagues about script ideas or acting approaches. Those tensions were not only external conflicts, but also triggered inner loneliness. Chevy had to tell himself that he needed to prove his worth, needed to assert himself in an environment that was both competitive and chaotic. Each broadcast episode was a challenge. Each laugh from the audience was recognition, but it also came with the responsibility to maintain performance, to continuously create, not to let his personal image be overshadowed among other stars. The long working days, the unsuccessful test episodes, the strict judgmental looks from editors or colleagues all lingered like silent scars, reminding Chevy that the road to fame was not smooth. In that context, the deadpan and satirical comedy style became his weapon, both protecting himself and affirming his talent. Chevy learned to turn pressure into creativity, turn internal conflicts into inspiration to improve his acting quality. He not only mastered the stage, but also gradually created an unmistakable personal mark, the combination of coldness, subtlety, and profound humor that made every wink, every line, every gesture able to become a symbol of American comedy. It was through these conflicts that Chevy realized that fame and talent were not only measured by laughter on screen, but also by the ability to endure pressure, overcome conflicts, and maintain spirit. The professional challenges and internal tensions at SNL had shaped the image of a resilient artist who knew how to balance between creativity and reality, between ego and team, creating the foundation for the next steps in his film career. Chevy's career on SNL was not only a turning point, but also a series of lessons about fortitude, about the ability to assert himself in a competitive and volatile environment, while paving the way for the classic film roles that he would mark in the history of American comedy. When stepping out of the brilliant light of Saturday Night Live, Chevy Chase quickly transformed to the big screen, where his winks, satirical comments, and cold deadpan ability were taken to a completely new level. The role of Clark Griswold in National Lampoon's Vacation in 1983 turned Chevy from a television star into an American comedy icon, a model that audiences from young to middle-aged generations immediately recognized just from the smile and mischievous eyes. Right after that, Fletch, 1985, continued to affirm his graceful comedic acting talent, where Chevy played a clever reporter with sharp dialogues, perfect comedic rhythm, making audiences laugh until they could not catch their breath. Caddyshack, 1980, also became one of the classic comedy films of the 80s, where every segment, every small action of Chevy created a natural humorous effect, combining intelligence and mischief, making audiences across the country remember it forever. From the small screen to the big screen, Chevy's film career became a living proof of his ability to turn everyday situations into peak comedy, while bringing his deadpan style into a standard for many generations of actors after him. But the spotlight on screen did not mean ease behind the scenes. Filming these classic movies was a stressful journey with strict requirements on time, script, and pacing, where every day on set was like a mental battle. Colleagues with strong personalities, some difficult directors demanding absolute precision, and the media constantly scrutinizing every action and word of Chevy, made the psychological pressure increasingly high. Each shot required maximum concentration. Each humorous line had to be precise in rhythm, intonation, and eyes, because even a small mistake could ruin the scene. Small internal conflicts, such as disagreements on ideas, ways of expression, or even unconscious competition between actors, lingered and occasionally erupted, affecting his spirit and personal life, creating a feeling that was both tense and lonely. The pressure of fame and public expectations made everything even more complicated. Chevy knew that audiences not only expected laughter, but also set extremely high standards for his films and characters. A failed movie or a line that was not sharp enough could tarnish his image in the eyes of the public. This pressure led to long nights of anxiety, thinking about how to maintain performance, how to keep his image in front of the media and fans, and how to balance between work and personal life that was already fragile. Those tensions were not only professional challenges, but also profound inner upheavals, where Chevy had to learn to adjust his emotions, find an outlet in comedy, and train his personal resilience. He learned how to turn pressure into inspiration, turn conflicts into lessons, and step by step build an image that was both reliable, captivating, and maintained his distinct personal mark. It was precisely during the filming of Vacation, Fletch, and Caddyshack that those challenges, pressures, and small conflicts forged him into an icon not only of comedic talent, but also of fortitude, resilience, and the ability to maintain performance in the harsh environment of Hollywood. Those exhausting days on set, the unsuccessful takes, the minor conflicts with colleagues, or the seemingly invisible media pressure, all contributed to creating an emotional climax internally, where Chevy both laughed and endured, both shone and faced loneliness. Those successes, though brilliant on screen, always came with challenges, and the very way he overcame every pressure helped build a living American comedy legacy that stands the test of time, where audiences both laugh and understand the extraordinary fortitude hidden behind each smile on screen. After the brilliant years on the big screen with Vacation, Fletch, and Caddyshack, Chevy Chase entered a challenging professional period, where the external spotlight seemed unable to hide the simmering conflicts behind the scenes. At Saturday Night Live, where he had built his name and become a comedy icon, there were many arguments with young and ambitious colleagues, who sometimes felt Chevy's deadpan style was too rigid or stole their spotlight. Differences in comedic approach, disagreements about scenes and acting rhythm turned rehearsals into tense places and sometimes pushed him into a state of mental isolation, feeling that even as a star, he still had to fight every day to protect his position and unique style. Conflicts did not only appear in SNL, but also extended into later years when Chevy joined Community, the sitcom where he played Pierce Hawthorne. The relationship with creator Dan Harmon was tense. Differences in storytelling and character personality frequently caused conflicts between the two sides. These arguments, though not widely publicized, were scrutinized and exaggerated by the media, turning internal issues into public stories, affecting Chevy's image and reputation. Each headline, each article about the difficult star felt like an invisible knife, forcing him to handle professional pressure while fighting against prejudices spread by the media. As a result, many important career opportunities slipped away. Potential projects no longer had room for Chevy, and the feeling of isolation in the entertainment industry became increasingly evident. Not a few times he felt he was being left out of the game, even though his talent and contributions were undeniable. Isolation was not only professional but also mental, where an actor once loved by the whole of America suddenly realized that fame could not protect him from the feeling of abandonment and misunderstanding. However, Chevy did not let those difficulties change his personality or style. He still maintained his signature deadpan approach, satirical and sharp, without compromising with external standards that he considered imposed or limiting creativity. This steadfastness helped him protect his artistic identity and at the same time maintain a Chevy mark that audiences immediately recognized. Every shot, every performance, every comedic role carried that distinctive style, reflecting an artist who knew how to stand firm against pressure, confident in his own talent, and unwilling to blend into the crowd. During this period, pressure from the media and public opinion sometimes forced Chevy to endure long, stressful days, facing scrutinizing eyes, gossip, and comments about things that had not even happened behind the scenes. Each time like that, he had to remind himself that the laughter on stage and screen was more important than any prejudice or rumor. Those professional tensions and conflicts, instead of diminishing his spirit, became resources for him to train his resilience, increase his inner strength, and learn to hold firm to his style no matter how the surrounding world changed. This period, although filled with incidents and isolation, contributed to forming a complete Chevy Chase, a comedian who was both sharp, resilient, subtle in observation, and knew how to turn pressures and conflicts into creative energy. The determination to maintain his unique style helped him not get lost in the harsh competitive environment of Hollywood, and at the same time created the foundation for him to continue shining in later roles, even when facing old age, declining health, or personal upheavals. It was these professional challenges, internal conflicts, and media pressures that forged Chevy into an American comedy icon capable of standing firm against all adversities, both making audiences laugh and inspiring them about fortitude and resilience. Entering his later years, Chevy Chase had to face an unavoidable reality. His body no longer had the energy it once had in his youth. Old injuries and years of intense work on set began to leave marks. Persistent back pain and physical issues made him rethink how to manage his health and working time. The classic comedy films he had starred in had brought laughter to the whole of America. But the falls, the risky scenes, and the continuous filming years had also left consequences that he only felt clearly when he grew old. Each morning, when waking up, Chevy no longer felt the flexibility he once had. Stiff joints, aching back, and persistent fatigue reminded him that old age was a new challenge, different from all the professional pressures he had ever experienced. Nevertheless, Chevy did not accept letting old age diminish his spirit or professional performance. He maintained strict daily training, not only to keep his physical condition, but also to maintain mental clarity, quick reaction ability, and the confidence that was his trademark. Light exercises, yoga, walking, and joint training became an indispensable part of his life, like a ritual to protect himself and strengthen his spirit. He understood that if the spirit was not trained, the body would weaken even faster, and creativity and acting would also be affected. However, health incidents could not be avoided. Some film projects he was once excited about had to be abandoned or postponed, forcing Chevy to adjust his lifestyle, reduce work intensity, and learn to accept the limits of his body. Those times rejecting roles, canceling shoots, sometimes made him feel disappointed, but at the same time taught him valuable lessons about balancing health and work. Instead of being discouraged, he learned to choose, to focus on roles suitable for his current abilities and still retain his unique quality. Health difficulties were not only physical challenges but also mental pressure. Each pain, each difficult step, reminded Chevy of the fragility of time and age. But what was special was the way he faced it, with fortitude, with resilience, by turning pain into motivation to continue creating. Even when he had to adjust his working style, reduce the number of projects or avoid overly risky scenes, he still maintained his presence, still appeared on stage and screen, still brought smiles to audiences as an affirmation that old age could not extinguish the spirit of a true artist. Old age and declining health also helped Chevy reflect on his life, appreciate every moment of working in the profession, of contributing, and every minute with family. Physical pain and the limitations of old age became opportunities for him to learn to slow down, to contemplate more deeply about each role, each scene, and each laugh he brought. He no longer chased the spotlight or fame. Instead, his career became a journey balancing creativity, health, and joy in work. The later years, with all the health difficulties, could not bring Chevy down. Instead, he used every resource, from training discipline, acting experience, to life wisdom, to maintain his professional performance. Each time appearing on stage or in front of the camera, audiences still saw a subtle, sharp, and humorous Chevy Chase like in his peak period. Even though inside his body were a series of persistent pains, stiff joints, and prolonged fatigue, it was precisely the ability to overcome pain and resiliently maintain performance that turned Chevy into a living symbol of fortitude, a proof that even through all physical incidents and age, the artist could still maintain creative spirit and the power to spread laughter, continuing to inspire millions of audiences around the world. Chevy Chase, even though loved by the whole of America for his classic comedic roles and illustrious career on screen, went through many profound incidents in his personal life, especially family relationships and marriages, things that could not be seen through the stage lights. He had been married 3 times, and each marriage left a deep mark, both valuable experiences and mental challenges. The separations, although somewhat hidden from the public, still left lingering wounds, forcing Chevy to face feelings of failure and loneliness even when his career was flourishing. Conflicts arose not only between him and his ex-wives, but also appeared in relationships with his children, where love was sometimes overshadowed by disagreements about distance, expectations, and lifestyles. The difficulty in balancing work and family was an unavoidable part of the life of a famous comedy star. When Chevy threw himself into film projects, participated in vacation, Fletch, or television shows, time for family became limited, making loved ones sometimes feel abandoned or unappreciated. The feeling of failure in relationships, emotional loss, and prolonged silent conflicts created long nights of reflection, making Chevy realize that laughter on screen could not compensate for real loneliness or emotional distance in the family. Each time seeing children grow up without showing enough presence, each time a marriage broke down, made him face disappointment and question himself whether he was doing enough for the most important people or not. However, Chevy did not let these incidents destroy his spirit. He made efforts to reconnect with family, especially in his later years, when awareness of time and the value of relationships became clearer than ever. Long conversations with children, peaceful moments with family, and spending time caring about every small detail in his children's lives became top priorities. As a way to heal past wounds and build mental stability, Chevy learned to listen, to yield when needed, and to use the humor and subtlety that were his trademark to create spaces of connection, where affection was nurtured without being dominated by work pressure or fame. Personal incidents, with all the failures, separations, and conflicts, were truly no small challenges, but at the same time were material for Chevy to train patience, tolerance, and sensitivity in behavior. He understood that a smile or a satirical remark not only served the audience, but sometimes was also a way to heal, to understand and maintain connection with loved ones. It was this persistence in rebuilding relationships that created a more complete Chevy Chase, not only an American comedy icon on screen, but also a father, husband, son who knew how to balance between the spotlight and real emotions. These efforts, although not always completely successful, helped him maintain his demeanor and spirit even when facing the pressure of old age. declining health, and painful memories from the past. Each step forward in healing the family was proof of the fortitude of a person who had once gone through a lonely childhood, been challenged by professional pressure and personal losses. Chevy Chase, in his later years, not only stood firm as a comedy icon, but also served as a model of how a person could overcome personal incidents, find reconnection and peace in the family, and from there spread laughter and inspiration to millions of audiences who still loved him. The years after Chevy Chase's career on the big screen and television had reached its peak not only brought laughter and admiration, but also brought unavoidable pressure and storms from public opinion and the media. Conflicts with colleagues, which were only work disagreements or small differences in acting style, were often exaggerated into controversial stories in newspapers and media outlets. A stern look, a satirical remark, or a sharp comeback on set was immediately turned into headlines, turning Chevy from a clever comedian into a difficult star in the eyes of the public. Each article, each online comment felt like an invisible knife, stirring up feelings of being misunderstood, forcing Chevy to face increasing public pressure. Even though the essence of the issue was sometimes just normal conflicts in the creative process, in those moments, the feeling of isolation and inner pressure became clearer than ever. Chevy realized that even though he had dedicated his life to laughter, had become a model for millions of audiences, he still could not fully control how people perceived him. Each article, each distorted interview, each exaggerated story pushed him into a state of mental tension, making the loneliness of old age and losses in personal life seem to return, reminding him that fame was only a thin curtain hiding inner challenges. Nevertheless, Chevy did not let this pressure completely control him. He learned to maintain his resilience, to distinguish what was truth and what was exaggeration. The sharpness in observation and life experience from a turbulent childhood helped him handle public opinion calmly, without impulsive reactions. But knowing how to adjust his attitude, focus on work and truly important values. Those media shocks, instead of bringing him down, became opportunities to train his spirit and patience, learn to protect his image and personal style without being blended with external pressures. Each exaggerated situation was turned by Chevy into a lesson: how to control emotions, how to protect himself from public opinion, and most importantly, how to keep the creative rhythm uninterrupted. These inner tensions were portrayed like a cinematic scene where audiences could feel the anxiety, isolation, and pressure weighing on the shoulders of an American comedy icon. Audiences anxiously followed his every step, every decision, seeing the effort to maintain demeanor and resilience in a world full of pressure, where laughter sometimes had to be paid for with mental fatigue. The challenges from scandals and social pressure were also proof of Chevy's inner strength. He did not run away from public opinion, did not turn pressure into fear, but turned it into motivation to continue contributing, continue creating, and still maintain the unique image of a complete comedian. Those years, inner tensions, isolation, and distorted comments from the media became material for Chevy to train his resilience, strengthen his will, and affirm that no matter what pressure he faced, he was still a resilient American comedy icon. A person who knew how to keep smiling amid the storm of public opinion and could still bring genuine laughter to audiences. After the years facing media and public pressure, Chevy Chase continued to affirm his name through other classic comedy films, where he not only proved his talent, but also maintained his unique style that the whole of America had recognized, from Vacation or Fletch. Funny Farm was one of the standout works, where he played a rural author facing ridiculous situations, demonstrating the ability to turn everyday situations into naturally humorous ones. In Spies Like Us, Chevy proved his flexible acting resilience when playing two clumsy agents in a context full of conflicts and troubles, both creating laughter and keeping sharp intelligence in the dialogue. And Caddyshack, the film still considered a classic of the '80s, brought extremely natural humorous moments, emphasizing the subtle deadpan talent and excellent interaction ability with fellow actors. helping Chevy become an irreplaceable highlight in every scene. Even as he moved into middle age and old age, Chevy still faced professional incidents. Some films failed at the box office or were criticized, creating psychological pressure and making him occasionally question the direction of his career. But those very experiences highlighted his fortitude. In one interview, Chevy once shared, "I know not everything I do is loved, but if I don't try, I will never know what my limits are." That statement not only reflected his life attitude, but also proved his persistent spirit, overcoming every failure to continue contributing to American comedy. Throughout this period, Chevy's influence on younger generations of comedians became evident. Steve Carell once admitted that the way Chevy used deadpan to create comedic rhythm and mischievous eyes had helped him learn how to combine expression and dialogue in his later roles. Will Ferrell also shared that Chevy's confidence and satirical style were the inspiration for him to develop his personal style, turning seemingly ordinary situations into unforgettable humorous moments. This influence showed that Chevy's success lay not only in his films but also in the way he shaped American comedy, paving the way for many following actors to freely create and express their own personalities. The incidents of old age, declining health, and some unsuccessful projects did not fade his position. Chevy learned to select projects suitable for his health and current abilities, maintaining his unique style without blending into external standards. He still appeared on screen, still made audiences laugh, and still kept his distinctive personal mark. Intelligent satire, sharp eyes, and the ability to turn everyday situations into profound comedy. The years following his film career were not only a series of movies and roles, but also proof of persistent spirit, steadfastness to art, and long-lasting influence. Chevy Chase became an icon that younger generations and loyal audiences loved not only for the laughter, but also for the way he overcame incidents, maintained his unique style, and continued to contribute, despite all the challenges of old age, public pressure, and the failure of some projects. This very attitude strengthened his position as an American comedy monument, where laughter always came with resilience, fortitude, and sincerity in every performance. When entering middle age, Chevy Chase had to face a harsh reality. His once brilliant career, loved by the whole of America, could no longer maintain its peak. The films he participated in after the classic works like Vacation, Fletch, or Caddyshack no longer created big buzz. Some failed at the box office or received average feedback from critics. These failures, although not diminishing his already recognized talent, still made Chevy clearly feel the pressure of age and the non-stop transformation of the entertainment industry, where young, passionate, and creative stars appeared every year, gradually replacing the previous faces. Along with the decline in on-screen success, Chevy had to face heavy stress, feelings of loneliness and pressure from the media. Each article, each comment from the press or public opinion could make his image scrutinized, misunderstood, sometimes making small professional conflicts become more tense in the eyes of the public. Film projects being delayed, roles being rejected, or scenes not meeting requirements all became mental challenges, making Chevy sometimes feel lost among the new generation, full of energy and desire to shine. The difference between his unique comedy style and new comedy trends made him feel he was no longer fully integrated, creating a feeling that was both isolating and suffocating, making moments on set more tense than ever. Nevertheless, Chevy did not let the incidents of middle age bring down his spirit. He turned to physical training, maintained healthcare habits like walking, light exercises, and methods to maintain body flexibility, both to fight against age and to keep the suppleness necessary for acting. At the same time, he turned to creativity, experimented with new acting approaches, combined familiar humorous elements with modern situation handling, helping himself adapt to the comedy style of younger audience generations. Family also became an important mental support, where Chevy found peace, real laughter, and energy to keep going, even though outside there was media pressure and demanding audiences. During this period, the long days on set, the tense scenes, or the high-pressure interviews became mental challenges. But Chevy learned to keep his own rhythm, turn stress into creative motivation, turn pressure into energy for the roles. Each failure or unsuccessful role was viewed by him as a lesson, helping him gain experience and prepare for the next opportunities. Chevy understood that patience, adaptability, and determination were the factors that helped him survive in the harsh entertainment industry, where youth was always full of passion and vitality, ready to replace the previous faces. The difficulties of middle age also helped Chevy reflect on the real values in his career and personal life. He realized that not every project could succeed, but the way he faced pressure, maintained his unique style, and took care of mental health was the most important thing. Those moments of loneliness, stress, or being misunderstood became opportunities for him to train resilience, know how to stand firm against every challenge, and keep his distinct identity. Chevy Chase, even standing in the storm of middle age with professional pressure, media, and the new generation, still continued to create, maintain his characteristic comedy style, and prove that patience and persistent spirit were the key to overcoming every incident and continuing to shine in the hearts of audiences. After the turbulent and challenging middle-age years, Chevy Chase proved that a true artist never gives up on himself and his career. The new turning point in this period was his return to the sitcom Community, where he played Pierce Hawthorne, a character who was both humorous and difficult, reflecting somewhat the real experiences in his own life and career. Chevy's appearance on Community was not only an opportunity for him to reaffirm his talent, but also to connect with a completely new generation of audiences, those who had never experienced films like Vacation or Fletch. Each shot, each line exuded the deadpan style, subtle satire, still keeping the distinctive features that familiar audiences knew, while adapting to the rhythm and modern comedy style of the new sitcom. Returning to Community also came with professional incidents, internal conflicts with creator Dan Harmon, clashes with young actors, and pressure from audiences as well as the media, all put Chevy in front of the challenge of adapting while still keeping his style. During many weeks of filming, he had to learn to balance creative freedom with the strict discipline of a modern sitcom, while facing comments and criticisms that were widely spread. However, Chevy did not let these incidents change his distinctive comedic identity, but on the contrary, he learned to maintain his personal style, combining rich experience with youthful rhythm, creating a harmony that was both traditional and fresh, making the role of Pierce memorable and creating positive buzz in the hearts of audiences. During this period, Chevy Chase's influence on American comedy became clearer than ever. Younger generations of actors like Steve Carell or Will Ferrell not only learned how to build comedic characters from the deadpan style, but also absorbed the resilient spirit, the ability to confidently keep style and handle professional pressure. Chevy, by returning to Community and still shining, proved that an artist's legacy lay not only in the films he had made, but also in the ability to inspire, create long-lasting marks, and pave the way for the next generation to continue. Besides maintaining influence with current audiences, Chevy also continued to be remembered as the icon of SNL, Vacation, Fletch, those films that had built the image of classic American comedy. Interview quotes showed that he was always conscious of his responsibility. "I don't just do comedy to make audiences laugh, but also to convey a way of looking, a rhythm, and a style that I hope will live on through generations of other actors." This return also showed that even though he went through middle age with many failures, pressures, and conflicts, Chevy still knew how to adapt to the new environment, learn different working methods, but without losing himself. This process not only strengthened his personal position, but also honored American comedy as a living legacy. Chevy became a model for young artists, proving that a comedian does not only rely on luck or temporary success, but needs persistence, adaptability, and respect for personal identity. The years returning to Community, with all the pressures, conflicts, and challenges, were exactly the proof of that spirit, when Chevy both maintained his distinctive comedy style and expanded his ability to connect and influence new audiences. This was also the period when Chevy clearly showed maturity in his profession, understanding that pressure, small scandals, or criticism from the media were not barriers, but opportunities to prove his ability and maintain his identity. Looking back at his old roles, audiences clearly saw the connecting thread from SNL, Vacation, Fletch to Community, a chain that expressed the creative journey, resilient spirit, and ability to maintain influence over many decades. Thanks to this return, Chevy not only left a mark in the hearts of new audiences, but also strengthened his long-term legacy, affirming his position as a monument in American comedy, where laughter is tied to fortitude, the spirit of overcoming challenges, and the ability to maintain personal identity amid all professional incidents and social pressures. At the age of 82, Chevy Chase entered a stage of life that seemed calmer, but still full of meaning and mental energy. After many decades standing on stage and screen, going through professional pressures, internal conflicts, and personal incidents, now he spent most of his time training, taking care of his health and maintaining his physical condition, clearly realizing that his body was no longer like in his youth, and every day was an opportunity to preserve flexibility. Each morning began with light exercises, walking, yoga, or training for joint and muscle flexibility. Chevy had turned self-care into an indispensable habit, both helping reduce the aches and pains of old age and keeping mental clarity and quick reaction ability, factors that helped him continue to feel joy in life and in work. Health limitations sometimes forced Chevy to abandon some projects, reduce work intensity, and choose roles suitable for his current abilities, but he never let that diminish his will to live. Each time facing bodily limits, he reminded himself of the experiences he had gone through, of how he had once overcome pressure, failure, and loneliness throughout his career, to find inner strength and continue moving forward. Physical challenges were not only barriers but also opportunities for Chevy to reflect on the value of every moment, to cherish the seconds of living, of laughing, and of being with loved ones. Family became the center of life in old age. Time spent with children, grandchildren, and loved ones was the motivation for him to continue maintaining spirit and health. Chevy observed every step of his children's growth, participated in small games, family meals, quiet conversations, and realized that this was the most important part of life. Connection, love, and presence. Smiles, eyes, and simple words from family brought him inner inspiration, a mental strength more enduring than any achievement on screen. Even though sometimes his body did not cooperate, with aching joints or old age fatigue, Chevy still kept the habit of training and caring for his health, creating a balance between spirit and body. He knew that simple happiness, quiet mornings, afternoons playing with grandchildren, were the well-deserved rewards for a life that had gone through many incidents and challenges. Joy no longer came from stage lights or audience applause, but from peaceful moments with loved ones, from genuine laughter and the bond between generations. The experiences in old age also gave Chevy the opportunity to look back on his journey, from a lonely boy who had to take care of himself to an American comedy icon, then going through professional conflicts, scandals, failures, and public pressure. Every step, every smile, every moment with family was proof of extraordinary fortitude and the ability to maintain a positive living attitude despite many incidents. Family became the place where he found peace and real joy, and at the same time was the source of inspiration to continue creating, preserving alertness, and the characteristic humorous spirit that had made Chevy Chase's name. At the age of 82, Chevy's life was no longer tied to stage lights or box office, but still full of meaning and energy. Simple happiness, conversations, grandchildren's laughter, and maintaining health helped him keep his spirit strong, balance emotions, and feel profound joy. The physical incidents, loneliness, and pressures he had once experienced now became valuable lessons, helping Chevy live each moment fully and prove that fortitude, perseverance, and family love could overcome every challenge, creating a life that was both admirable and touching. The legacy that Chevy Chase left in American comedy and film was not only measured by the number of classic films or awards he had achieved, but also by the way he had influenced and shaped comedy style throughout more than half a century. His roles in SNL, Vacation, Fletch, or Caddyshack not only brought laughter to audiences, but also created a new standard for deadpan comedy, intelligent satire combined with subtle expression, making millions of people around the world forever remember his graceful and sharp moments. Audiences and colleagues all acknowledge that the comedy style Chevy built was a model, a source of inspiration for young actors to learn from Steve Carell, Will Ferrell, to many other modern comedians, who still continued to mention him as a living monument of American comedy. But those successes did not come easily. Chevy's life was also a series of challenging incidents. From a lonely childhood, professional conflicts on SNL, internal clashes with Community and Dan Harmon, to media and public pressure. Each of those incidents, though harsh, became a lesson, helping him train fortitude, learn to adapt and maintain his unique style. Not every challenge was seen by the public. Many pressures, inner tensions, and loneliness he experienced were kept hidden. But those very experiences created the depth, wisdom, and subtle observational ability in each role. Chevy not only brought laughter, but also conveyed a message about fortitude, resilience, and the ability to overcome adversity, something that many fans and colleagues recognized and respected. His legacy also lay in the way he overcame difficult personal life and individual incidents. 3 marriages, conflicts with his children, middle age and old age pressures, all were challenges that Chevy faced with steadfast spirit, learning to reconcile, finding reconnection with family, and keeping simple joy in life. The fact that he still maintained his humorous demeanor, sharp observational ability, and dedication to art despite so many incidents had become a model for the next generation, proving that an artist could be resilient, maintain identity, and continue to inspire even in the most difficult periods of life. Besides maintaining influence with current audiences, Chevy also continued to be remembered as the icon of SNL, Vacation, Fletch, those films that had built the image of classic American comedy. Interview quotes showed that he was always conscious of his responsibility. "I don't just do comedy to make audiences laugh, but also to convey a way of looking, a rhythm, and a style that I hope will live on through generations of other actors." This return also showed that even though he went through middle age with many failures, pressures, and conflicts, Chevy still knew how to adapt to the new environment, learn different working methods, but without losing himself. This process not only strengthened his personal position, but also honored American comedy as a living legacy. Chevy became a model for young artists, proving that a comedian does not only rely on luck or temporary success, but needs persistence, adaptability, and respect for personal identity. The years returning to Community, with all the pressures, conflicts, and challenges, were exactly the proof of that spirit. When Chevy both maintained his distinctive comedy style and expanded his ability to connect and influence new audiences. This was also the period when Chevy clearly showed maturity in his profession, understanding that pressure, small scandals, or criticism from the media were not barriers but opportunities to prove his ability and maintain his identity. Looking back at his old roles, audiences clearly saw the connecting thread from SNL, Vacation, Fletch to Community, a chain that expressed the creative journey, resilient spirit, and ability to maintain influence over many decades. Thanks to this return, Chevy not only left a mark in the hearts of new audiences, but also strengthened his long-term legacy, affirming his position as a monument in American comedy, where laughter is tied to fortitude, the spirit of overcoming challenges, and the ability to maintain personal identity amid all professional incidents and social pressures. At the age of 82, Chevy Chase entered a stage of life that seemed calmer, but still full of meaning and mental energy. After many decades standing on stage and screen, going through professional pressures, internal conflicts, and personal incidents, now he spent most of his time training, taking care of his health, and maintaining his physical condition, clearly realizing that his body was no longer like in his youth and every day was an opportunity to preserve flexibility. Each morning began with light exercises, walking, yoga, or training for joint and muscle flexibility. Chevy had turned self-care into an indispensable habit, both helping reduce the aches and pains of old age and keeping mental clarity and quick reaction ability, factors that helped him continue to feel joy in life and in work. Health limitations sometimes forced Chevy to abandon some projects, reduce work intensity, and choose roles suitable for his current abilities. But he never let that diminish his will to live. Each time facing bodily limits, he reminded himself of the experiences he had gone through, of how he had once overcome pressure, failure, and loneliness throughout his career, to find inner strength and continue moving forward. Physical challenges were not only barriers, but also opportunities for Chevy to reflect on the value of every moment, to cherish the seconds of living, of laughing, and of being with loved ones. Family became the center of life in old age. Time spent with children, grandchildren, and loved ones was the motivation for him to continue maintaining spirit and health. Chevy observed every step of his children's growth, participated in small games, family meals, quiet conversations, and realized that this was the most important part of life. Connection, love, and presence. Smiles, eyes, and simple words from family brought him inner inspiration, a mental strength more enduring than any achievement on screen. Even though sometimes his body did not cooperate, with aching joints or old age fatigue, Chevy still kept the habit of training and caring for his health, creating a balance between spirit and body. He knew that simple happiness, quiet mornings, afternoons playing with grandchildren were the well-deserved rewards for a life that had gone through many incidents and challenges. Joy no longer came from stage lights or audience applause, but from peaceful moments with loved ones, from genuine laughter and the bond between generations. The experiences in old age also gave Chevy the opportunity to look back on his journey, from a lonely boy who had to take care of himself to an American comedy icon, then going through professional conflicts, scandals, failures, and public pressure. Every step, every smile, every moment with family was proof of extraordinary fortitude and the ability to maintain a positive living attitude despite many incidents. Family became the place where he found peace and real joy, and at the same time was the source of inspiration to continue creating, preserving alertness, and the characteristic humorous spirit that had made Chevy Chase's name. At the age of 82, Chevy's life was no longer tied to stage lights or box office, but still full of meaning and energy, simple happiness, conversations, grandchildren's laughter, and maintaining health helped him keep his spirit strong, balance emotions, and feel profound joy. The physical incidents, loneliness, and pressures he had once experienced now became valuable lessons, helping Chevy live each moment fully and prove that fortitude, perseverance, and family love could overcome every challenge, creating a life that was both admirable and touching. The legacy that Chevy Chase left in American comedy and film was not only measured by the number of classic films or awards he had achieved, but also by the way he had influenced and shaped comedy style throughout more than half a century. His roles in SNL, Vacation, Fletch, or Caddyshack not only brought laughter to audiences, but also created a new standard for deadpan comedy. Intelligent satire combined with subtle expression, making millions of people around the world forever remember his graceful and sharp moments. Audiences and colleagues all acknowledged that the comedy style Chevy built was a model, a source of inspiration for young actors to learn from Steve Carell, Will Ferrell to many other modern comedians who still continue to mention him as a living monument of American comedy. But those successes did not come easily. Chevy's life was also a series of challenging incidents. From a lonely childhood, professional conflicts on SNL, internal clashes with Community and Dan Harmon, to media and public pressure, each of those incidents, though harsh, became a lesson, helping him train fortitude, learn to adapt and maintain his unique style. Not every challenge was seen by the public. Many pressures, inner tensions, and loneliness he experienced were kept hidden, but those very experiences created the depth, wisdom, and subtle observational ability in each role. Chevy not only brought laughter, but also conveyed a message about fortitude, resilience, and the ability to overcome adversity, something that many fans and colleagues recognized and respected. His legacy also lay in the way he overcame difficult personal life and individual incidents. 3 marriages, conflicts with his children, middle age and old age pressures, all were challenges that Chevy faced with steadfast spirit, learning to reconcile, finding reconnection with family, and keeping simple joy in life. The fact that he still maintained his humorous demeanor, sharp observational ability, and dedication to art, despite so many incidents, had become a model for the next generation, proving that an artist could be resilient, maintain identity, and continue to inspire even in the most difficult periods of life. Audiences looking at Chevy see not only a comedian, but also a person who has known how to stand firm against every storm, a symbol of resilience, of the ability to turn pain and failure into a source of creativity. The smiles he brings are the result of a long journey overcoming loneliness, professional incidents, and social pressure, making that laughter carry appreciation, understanding, and the touch of tragedy that audiences feel deeply. It is precisely this blend of humor, fortitude, and personal experience that has created his timeless influence, making his legacy not only films, but also life lessons, a source of inspiration and an artistic standard. Today, even though he is advanced in age, Chevy Chase's achievements and influence are still mentioned with admiration. Younger generations of actors, old colleagues, and audiences all see him as someone who has helped shape American comedy, a living symbol of the spirit of overcoming adversity, maintaining personal identity, and still dedicating himself fully to art. That legacy, tied to the smiles and the silent efforts to overcome difficulties, makes people not only appreciate his talent, but also admire Chevy Chase's will and extraordinary fortitude. His life, from a lonely childhood to the years on SNL and the big screen, from professional conflicts to peaceful old age with family, all converge in the image of a complete American comedy icon. Both humorous, resilient, and inspiring, the incidents he overcame not only created excellent roles, but also left profound lessons for audiences about fortitude, perseverance, and the ability to find joy and meaning in every moment of life. Chevy Chase, with both his illustrious career and life overcoming challenges, has left a legacy where his laughter, fortitude, and influence will continue to echo in American comedy for many generations. At the age of 82, looking back on the entire journey he has been through, Chevy Chase stands as a living proof of fortitude, resilience, and the ability to overcome every adversity. His childhood, full of turmoil and loneliness, deeply engraved in his soul a subtle sensitivity, a meticulous observational ability, and a habit of self-defense to humor that later became an unmistakable trademark. His parents' divorce, constant moves, the absence of a truly safe shoulder made young Chevy learn to stand firm alone, take care of himself, and seek joy from music, theater, and imagination. Those experiences, although full of pain, planted in him the inner strength to step into the harsh world of performing arts, turning loneliness and failure into material to shine. When his career reached its peak with SNL, Vacation, Fletch, and Caddyshack, Chevy not only conquered audiences but also had to face professional pressure, internal conflicts, and continuous scrutiny from the media. Those tensions, combined with personal conflicts, broken marriages, and distance from his children, not only tested his spirit but also demanded extraordinary fortitude to maintain his identity. deadpan style, and the ability to turn ordinary situations into subtle comedy. Over many years, Chevy learned to adapt, learned to balance between career and family, learned to stand firm against public opinion and judgmental looks, so that every smile, every wink became an indelible mark in audiences' hearts. His old age is not a time to rest completely, but a period to continue training, maintaining health, and caring for his spirit. The back pains, stiff joints, or physical limitations could not stop him from maintaining exercise, staying in shape, and continuing to participate in suitable projects. Chevy learned to slow down, to cherish every peaceful moment with family, every laugh from his children, and every minute doing the profession he loved. Family became the source of mental motivation, the place where he found peace, the place where past wounds gradually healed. In those quiet afternoons, when sunlight streamed through the window, Chevy looked back on his life journey, from a lonely boy who had to take care of himself to an American comedy icon admired by the whole country. From internal conflicts, media scandals, public pressure, to the peaceful years of old age with family, every incident, every failure, every silent pain was a brick building. A real person, both humorous, resilient, and respectable. He had learned to turn pain and failure into creative material, learned to stand firm against every storm, and learned to find joy in the simplest things. The lesson Chevy Chase conveys is priceless: resilience in the face of adversity, not yielding to pressure, and always maintaining one's own identity, whether standing in the spotlight or amid personal storms. He has proven that true success is not only fame or awards, but the ability to overcome challenges, maintain style, and spread positive influence to audiences and colleagues. Looking back, the laughter he brought not only soothed audiences but also reflected a resilient journey, a heart that dared to face pain, and a soul always directed toward creativity. At the age of 82, the image of Chevy Chase appears with optimism, calm but full of vitality. His sharp eyes still retaining mischief, his smile still radiant but containing all the experiences and life lessons. He stands there, looking back on a life that is past, where every smile, every failure, every personal and professional incident has contributed to creating the person he is today, an American comedy icon, a father, an artist, a person who knows how to resiliently overcome every challenge. When Chevy sighs, holds his grandchildren's hands, and smiles while looking back on the days that have passed, audiences see not only a classic comedian, but also a real person. With all the pain, loneliness, effort, and extraordinary fortitude, the laughter he brings is proof of the journey overcoming adversity, of inner strength and persistent determination, making everyone admire him. Chevy Chase's story, from a childhood full of incidents to the peak of his career, from personal conflicts to peaceful old age, closes like a symphony of pain, fortitude, and simple joy, leaving audiences a profound message. Even when life is full of challenges, as long as one maintains spirit, resiliently faces them, and cherishes the simple things, a person can still shine and spread an immortal influence. Chevy Chase's life, viewed from the age of 82, is living proof of the spirit of overcoming every incident, of the ability to turn pain into strength, and of the lasting influence that an artist can leave for the entire comedy and film industry and audiences. Tears may fall when remembering that journey, but at the same time there is admiration and inspiration, so that everyone understands that fortitude, perseverance, and family love are timeless values that create an unfading legacy. Chevy Chase's life, when looked back from the age of 82, is a journey that is both brilliant on screen and full of silent pains and personal incidents that few can clearly see. From a lonely childhood with divorced parents, having to take care of himself and seek joy through music, theater, and imagination, to the peak years of his career on SNL, Vacation, Fletch, he always had to face pressure, internal conflicts, and media scrutiny, arguments with colleagues, Conflicts in community, small scandals being exaggerated all placed him before no small mental challenges, but Chevy still steadfastly kept his deadpan style, subtle satire, and unique identity, something that audiences and later generations of young actors like Steve Carell or Will Ferrell all admire. Not only the successes on screen, but precisely the personal challenges. 3 broken marriages, distance from his children, middle-age pressure forged him into a person who was both humorous, resilient, and profound. The years of old age with back pain, stiff joints, physical limitations did not stop him from continuing to train, care for his health, and spend time bonding with family, turning simple happiness into inner motivation, helping him maintain creative spirit and joy in living. The lesson drawn from Chevy Chase's journey for the American people is profound and practical. Success is not only measured by fame or money, but is built from fortitude, the ability to overcome adversity and persistently maintain personal identity. Pain, failure, or loneliness are not the end, but material to train resilience and nurture creativity. Chevy turned a lonely childhood into subtle observational ability, turned professional conflicts into inner strength, and turned personal pressures into motivation to live fully. He is proof that even in the most difficult circumstances, a person can still create a legacy, spread influence, and find real happiness in family and enduring spiritual values. If Chevy Chase's story has touched your heart, please hit like and subscribe to join us in honoring comedy icons who overcome adversity. Thank you for watching. See you again in the next video to explore more extraordinary lives where fortitude and passion write legends.